everybody. We are doing another rural interview, and as you can see right over here is Prepping with Sarge. Sarge, how are you today, buddy?
I'm doing good. Happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday indeed. And look at everybody already in the chat making friends. And who do we got? I see Sassy Gal is in here. Southern was first. Welcome, Southern. Who else do we got? Kentucky. I know I'm missing some people.
Lazarus Long's in there. Good to see you. There we go. I think that's it so far that I see.
We'll have a bunch of people jump in, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
Yes. Oh, and there's Leonard Mountain Homestead. Welcome, Amy, and all the Leonards on the homestead out there. Good to see you guys. All right, so as people come and jump in, which I see the numbers are rising, uh, go ahead and tell everybody who you are, everything you want to share about you so they can get to know you.
All right, sounds good. And by the way, everybody, don't forget to hit the like button here. So, Prepping with Sarge, if you're not familiar with me, I've got a YouTube channel here and also on Instagram. I'm also on Twitter or X or whatever we call it these days, and trying to get a little presence going on Facebook. Teach prepping content, but if you wanted to kind of narrow that down to where I focus on, do the some food self sufficiency, foraging, gardening, that kind of thing. A little bit of financial preparedness, which maybe we'll hit on tonight because I know you're kind of into that stuff too. And a little bit of mental health. By trade, I'm actually a licensed mental health provider and do therapy mostly with first responders. A very special place in my heart for the first responders. So if anybody out there in the community is watching, you're a first responder, I really appreciate what you do. Do a lot of like trauma work and that kind of stuff. But yeah, so I've got a second channel too. It's the official mental health channel where I kind of talk more about that stuff. It's actually only about the mental health stuff. And then the prepping channel is more of the prepping stuff, but I still hit on some of those mental health topics on there as well.
Excellent, excellent. Which I just see Jim Richards popped in visiting from the SOE community. So welcome, buddy. So you touched on the mental health background. So real quick for everybody in the chat, we're going to answer questions. So if you guys have a question for each one of us, toss it into like all caps so it gets our attention. But when it comes to like preparing and the SHTF stuff and things like that, I think the mental aspect is a real big deal. So if somebody is just starting out, like how big of an importance do you think it is to like really prep your mentality?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, I think as preppers, we're naturally somewhat independent in spirit. We like to believe that we're self sufficient, and for the most part, preppers are more self sufficient than everybody else. But it really doesn't matter how strong you think you are physically or mentally. I've worked with veterans. I've worked with first responders. These are some of the toughest people out there, and emergencies when there's life and death situations is going to shake you up.
Mm-hmm.
um, and it's really hard to predict how who's going to be affected and how. So just to take firefighters as an example, you could have a situation where a building's burning and there's people inside, and you got 10 firefighters go inside and they're pulling bodies out, things like that. Some of the bodies are burned. Um, Maybe 8 of those people might be okay, and 2 of them start having some symptoms. They might start having some flashbacks or some nightmares. It's not a matter of that they were weaker than the others. It really has to do with what you're bringing into the game, right? So your childhood, your experiences up to that moment all play a factor, and it doesn't even have to be that you are like had previous trauma. It actually has to do with like your core beliefs. So just as to give an example, growing up in my household, I had 2 older sisters. My dad is awesome, and he did a great job raising us. But he had to work a lot, my parents decided like he was going to work a lot. My mom was going to stay home, and so we spent more time with her. And so it was very much, kind of a matriarchal family unit for most of the time. And one of the big core beliefs in my family growing up was you don't hit women. Like you never ever lay your hands on a woman. So that's a core belief. When we talk about core beliefs, it's like it's the things that you're raised with that you believe are this is how the world is supposed to function. Now, obviously not everybody is raised the same, and so people's core beliefs clash sometimes. So if I was a first responder and I went, and I'm not, by the way, if I was a first responder and I went into a scene and some woman had been beat to death because of my core beliefs, I'm going to have probably a stronger reaction to that. It has nothing to do. Well, sometimes previous traumas can come into it, but it's not always that. It's the core beliefs are a big part of it too. So maybe the other 5 other people that went in the room with me weren't raised the same. They believe that beating a woman is bad, but they didn't have that same, like, that it was drilled into them like it was for me. And so it hits me a little bit harder. I might start getting symptoms from it. So we all got this little thing back here in the brainstem called the amygdala. Operate, and I'm simplifying it, of course, for the purpose of the stream, but operates your fight, flight, freeze. When that thing starts acting up and not functioning correctly or misfiring, people are going to start having symptoms, right? So in the preparedness community, how do we apply this? Well, we all talk about SHTF situations, and that can be anything from a hurricane to an EMP, just kind of depends on what's happening. And all of a sudden now you're in a whole lot of life and death situations. And that fight, flight, freeze part of the brain's gonna start getting lit up, and we can all say, "Oh, I'm tough, I'm tough, I'm tough." You really don't know what's going to happen until you're in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And that's where training comes into a lot of this. And I build my channel for those that join, that follow you. And welcome to everybody that's joining in. Um, my channel is more on geared towards the people that's just stepping into, preparedness. And so I push training a lot because it's real easy to run out and see that, neat, flashy, popular, oh, this guy that's got 50 million people, he said to go buy this item. Like, the item is only as good as your training. How well do you agree with that?
Oh yeah, skills are way more important than gear. Now, I'm being a prepper. I like my gear. You probably do too. I love my knives. I love my flashlights. I love my backpacks. But the more skills you can bring, the less you're reliant on your gear, right? So, if people out there are listening and they're thinking, well, I'm building my bug out bag, just as an example, right? When you build the first bug out bag you build, you're going to overflow it. It's going to be way too much stuff in there, and you're going to have to take it out, go on a 5 mile hike, see how it feels, and you're going to be like, I got to dump some of this gear.
Mhm.
Well, how do you do that? You got to build some skills, right? So maybe the more you're able to hunt or forage or make snares and traps, the less food you're going to have to carry. The more you can shelter build, and we're kind of talking about extreme situations, but the more you could shelter build, the less I'm going to rely on maybe bringing a tent or a hammock with me, right? So you can start dropping some of that stuff by skills, but also, if a real bad situation comes along, the supply chain is messed up, we might not be able to get access to everything we need. We might not be able to get replacement parts. Eventually batteries are going to run out, and things like that. And so skills are way more important than gear. And I guess sometimes we in the community can get like overly dependent on the gear, right? When maybe we should be overly dependent on the skills.
Yes, yeah. And I push too. Once you get that skill, that teaches you a very critical part to where it gives you that chance of replenishment. So I can take a water filter with me, that's great, but eventually that water filter is going to get broken, it's going to get plugged up, it's only rated for so many gallons. If I have it in my head on how to do it myself, then I've got almost an endless supply as long as I can find water.
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
That's when
So,
those five
nope.
C's come in, right? Like there's five
Yes.
critical pieces of gear. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Which we touch on the 5 C's and the 10 C's too from time to time. Um, who was that? Was that Dave Canterbury? Was he the one that's famous for that?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So let's switch over. Um, what on medical? How important is medical when it comes to just basic preparedness?
Yeah, you're your own first responder if there's an emergency going on, right? So
Hmm.
um, at minimum, probably everybody should know first aid and CPR. And if you're going to take it a step further than that, stop the bleed. I need to actually refresh on Stop the Bleed. Like if I had to, I would apply the knowledge that I have, but it wouldn't hurt me to do a refresher on it. Um, it's great if you've got a fancy first aid kit. Do you know how to put a tourniquet on the right way?
Mhm.
Do you know how to use halo seals? And there's stuff in my first aid kit that I don't know how to use properly because I've not been trained on it. Like the tube that goes down the throat. What do they call that?
For the trachea
Yeah,
sort of, yeah.
I, I've got one because it came with my kit, but I've never been trained on it.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I've got uh, the throwaway staple gun,
Mm,
and I'm like, yeah, this is either I practice on something and I throw it away and just hope that that's good enough, or I need to go find training for that. But I
hmm.
have one.
Yep. Yeah.
Yes.
The and CPR too,
Hmm.
because again, we're talking about some big things here where the system really breaks down. But the reality is, we're much more. All of us are much more likely to deal with a small personal SHTF, right?
Hmm.
So at some point in your life, there's a pretty good chance you're going to have to do some kind of important CPR for somebody, right? And I had to do the abdominal thrust, formerly called the Heimlich maneuver, for a woman that was choking, and that got my amygdala jacked up pretty good because I was doing it. She was an older lady. I was giving her the thrust, and because she was older, I was afraid because I've heard stories about the
Hmm.
ribs breaking and stuff, so I was just kind of going a little bit, and I peeked around, and her lips started turning purple, and I'm like, oh crap! So then I went for it, and it came right out. It was a piece of broccoli. It came right out, but I had to go pretty hard, harder than I would have thought,
Hmm.
and fortunately, she didn't break any ribs.
What's always a good thing on that.
Yeah.
Awesome. And yeah, it comes down to that, and I forget, and I'm gonna probably mess this statistic up, but it was for people that conceal carry or have a firearm. You are, I think they said it was like 3 or 4 times more likely to use a tourniquet than your firearm.
Mhm. Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's one of those. I hope I never have to use either, but I think on their point is you're more often to come across somebody that either yourself or somebody is going to need that tourniquet more
Yeah.
than you to draw and actually do something. So I've always pushed that. If you're going to carry this, carry a tourniquet.
Yeah, that's actually really good advice, and I'm not in a good habit of that. Like I have one in all the vehicles and whatnot. It's not on my person, and unless I'm hiking, then I do have one on my person. Um, but I don't do it. Like if I'm going into Target for a little while, or I'm going into the
Mhm.
movie theater, I don't have my tourniquet on me. It's probably something to think about.
Yep, yep. I've always pushed that one. It's because when I did my training for different tactical stuff, uh, we had the kind of the instructor instill upon us, whatever you pick up, whether it's a stick, a rock, a hammer, whatever, you have to have it in your head that whoever's coming at you can get that item and use it against you.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to use a firearm and somebody gets that firearm, do you have the ability to render self aid if it's used against you? And that's why I always come in, carry a tourniquet.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good advice. Yeah.
Yes. So on the medical things, if and then this is a channel for the beginners, what are some beginner items? Like what are some must-haves if nobody has any medical equipment whatsoever? What are some must-haves for beginners?
Well, number one, you got to have different types of bandages. Like, I mean, me being a knife lover, I cut myself all the time. I don't know if you do.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yep.
I consider a knife not broken in until I've cut myself with it, and
Hmm.
I go through a lot of band aids here, so I stack a lot of band aids. But then you got to have tons of gauze, right? You got to have tons of big bandages, the triangular bandages, the Israeli bandages, if you're going to train on it, then get your halo seals, which are the chest seals, which are good for gunshot wounds and things like that. Of course, if you're gonna train on it, get yourself some good tourniquets. Don't cheap out on the tourniquets. Get good tourniquets. And they're expensive. The good ones are expensive, but you use a cheap one, it's going to break. And unfortunately, when we started sending some supplies over to Ukraine, they were sending a lot of cheap tourniquets, and they were
Hmm.
complaining like, basically these tourniquets are snapping super easy, so that doesn't do you any good.
Nope.
Um, and then, if you want to think beyond that, we always keep some aspirin, Benadryl, Imodium. A lot of people don't realize this because we're blessed. If you live in the United States, you don't realize how lucky we are that we have clean drinking water. It's actually
Hmm.
the number one killer in the world is dirty drinking water, and Imodium will potentially save somebody's life if their bodily fluids are passing out of them faster than they can get them in. You got to stop that.
Hmm.
And I don't want to get into like giving medical advice over YouTube, but you can look up the medical uses for Benadryl and aspirin too, and why those can also save lives.
Yes. Yes. And for the people that's just getting started, do you have any sort of suggestions on different ways or places that they can go to get trained?
I mean, I've done a lot of my stuff through just the American Red Cross. Being that I work in the mental health field, it was always kind of a requirement, anyways. So my work has made that available to me. But if you don't, if you can't find that near you, check your church groups. A lot of the church groups will do stuff like this. Worst case scenario, call the non-emergency line for your fire department, non-emergency line, and ask them, where can I take a stop the bleed class?
Yes. And Southern Tier, I see right there, brings up a good one on EpiPens.
And
Getting
yeah.
things like training on EpiPens and Narcan would
Hmm.
be really good.
Yeah, we have some Narcan in the house, and I have some. We have it at work as well. I actually would like to get more because working with the first responders in therapy, I sometimes ask them questions like that, like, "What have you ever had to give more than two?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, we've given up to four." And I think four is, don't quote me on this, anybody. You're going to have to talk to a trainer. You can get Narcan training too, and it's usually free. But whatever the limit is, the upper limit is. And unfortunately, there is some stuff that's getting out on the street now. That's like, it's always been that the certain words here are getting us in trouble on YouTube. So the F word, if you know what I mean, that
Yes.
people are putting in drugs. That's been the big problem the last few years. But there's a new one that's coming from a horse tranquilizer that's also getting put into drugs, and it's the Narcan will not help with that. Basically, you got these scumbag drug dealers that are mixing stuff in to cut the product and maximize their product. They're scumbags. They're not anybody's friend. All they care about is money.
Yep.
And the thing is, people have said to me like, well, why would you don't use drugs? Why would you carry Narcan? Well, I don't use drugs, but that stuff, from what I understand, like the F word, just accidental exposure to it. Like somebody's over your house and you didn't know that they use drugs, and they get some of that powder or something somewhere, and then you touch it and you don't have the tolerance built up like they did.
Hmm.
You're in trouble.
Yes.
And if it's a little kid, they're really in trouble because their body weight's so much lower. So that's why I keep it around.
Which I see Jim Richards there. I don't know the answer to that. Is there any way for civilians to get IV supplies?
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. But Narcan, you definitely can as a civilian.
Yeah. The only thing that I can think of on RV is you may go to something like Tractor Supply, a some sort of something that does like farm. You might be able to.
Yeah.
That one I have no clue, and I don't even know if I've ever thought about that. To be honest, it's probably a good question for me to look into.
Yeah. And Jim, if you've got training on that, you probably, or anybody out there that's got training, you probably have better sources on like how to do that stuff. But it's interesting that you mentioned the veterinary medicine, because a lot of people who own livestock kind of know how to do some of this stuff, at least on an animal. So, yeah.
Right, right. And in a pinch, I would rather try something than to just lay there and be like, "Oh, okay,
Mhm.
yes."
Yeah.
All right. Well, I tell you what, and I'm still waiting on some questions because we got quite a few people in here, and everybody seems to be conversing amongst themselves. I'm sitting here like having fun reading everybody's comments. And stores in Philly sell the IV drips with vitamins. That's interesting,
Interesting.
huh? It is so odd to me every once in a while because the United States is so big that the normal in Texas is not the normal in Maine.
Yeah.
It's all over the place. Everybody's got their own normals. And so, for like what he's saying right here with the IV stuff, for me, I have no clue. I've never seen it. And I've been to a lot of stores and a lot of different places. And then, whoever pops in there and they're like, oh, no, it's just everywhere around here. And I'm like, really?
Yeah, I have not seen it, but I've also not been looking for it. So
Right.
I'll try to keep my eyes open and see if I spot it.
Nice. Nice. Okay, well, you know what? I held out long enough on this subject and I'm like a little kid. So let's talk knives.
Okay.
So I watched your video, I believe it last night or this morning where you did your update to your EDC.
Yep.
Yep, yep. And I found it very fascinating, and I'm actually going to follow in your footsteps of updating your EDC every year. I like that.
Yep. And sometimes I've thinned it down. This year I actually thinned it down a little bit. It does get to be a pain in the butt if you're carrying around a lot of kit in your pocket. So you have to think about what do I really need? What am I most likely to use? That kind of thing. And can I realistically get access to the other stuff pretty quick? Right. So I've got pretty good kit in my car, and I'm never that far from my car. I can sprint to my car almost always. So do I need to carry all like a stack of band-aids in my pocket? Probably not. Could have one in your wallet, and that's not a bad idea, but do I need to carry a big stack of them when I've got a full first aid kit in my car?
Right.
So yeah. So what knives do you like? Is there a company that you like the best?
Man, I've been going around, and what for me, I have been since I started the channel. I really want to make sure that I gear myself towards that beginning prepper. 90% of probably beginning preppers either don't have a ton of money
Hmm.
or they're hesitant about spending a ton of money. So I've been challenging myself to find that more budget or friendly stuff.
Okay.
And that's why I've been going out and finding like Schrader and some of the knives in that like $20 to $50 range.
Hmm. Yeah, CRKT has a couple knives under 30 that I've used a lot of CRKT knives, and they've held up really, really well. They sometimes people in the community are like, I don't like CRKT. Okay, well, I've got one that I used for 11 years, and it's still. I mean, you can tell that it's been used for 11 years, but it still works, still holds up really well. For a good bushcraft knife under $30, Mora knives can't be beat.
Oh
Like
yeah,
it's like what, $28 or something like that. I haven't bought one in a while, but uh whatever it is, even if it's up to 35, it's still a bargain for what it is.
oh yeah, yeah. And I've had it in my head. I did the interview with J.K. Bushcraft Survival, and he actually said it out loud for me. On those people that go in and they drop that $500 for a knife,
Hmm.
99 times out of 100, you're not using that knife.
Yeah.
You're too afraid it's going to break or it's scratch or break, whatever. And I'm like, you know what? That's right. Because you are going to take that $30 knife and
Yeah.
you're going to use it. You're going to put it through, everything that you possibly can. And then all of a sudden you're going to learn you don't have to always have that,
Right.
top tier, just because everybody else has it. And I am the same way. I forget actually what brand it is I'm carrying now. Um, I want to say, well, my work knife is it's actually a Smith and Wesson knife. I think I got it on sale for 9.99.
Hmm.
Yes. Oh, and right there, JS Genesis Designs, the Kershaw. Yeah, I just bought one of those too.
Yeah, Kershaw makes great blades.
Hmm.
Yep. The somebody asked a question up there earlier. I was trying to find it.
But you're on a computer, so you might do better on the questions than me on a phone.
Yeah. Oh, I think this is for you. Leonard Mountain Homestead wants to see if you've got the knife nearby that somebody sent you.
Um, it's actually like 30 steps that way.
Okay.
So I tell you what, I can actually grab it for 2 seconds if you want to commentary for a moment.
Sure, I'll show them what's in my pocket.
Okay, okay, I'll be right back.
All right. So this is my EDC this year. This is the Venture Point from Holtzman Survival. I just did a video on this not too long ago. It is a really fun fidget friendly knife. It is super slick. Watch. I mean, I didn't have to even really wiggle that. So I'm a guy. I have ADHD, and I like to play with knives. So this one is really fidget friendly, and you can open it and deploy it all different ways, and keep like letting it drop shut. Um, but yeah, that's my 2024 one. That's the Venture Point from Holtzman Guerrilla Survival.
Awesome. Yeah, I watched that in the video, and I was just sitting there like, I need to go buy one of those. And which, for all of you guys that follow me and do not follow Sarge, if you go watch that video, you have all the links where you can get percentages off all them items.
Yeah, there's discount codes. There's one for that knife, and basically all of my EDC kit except for the wallet because I'm not a brand ambassador for Ridge.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Well, from one knife enthusiast to another, this was a Christmas gift by a subscriber that
nice.
left no name whatsoever. I
Oh
have
wow,
no idea who it's from, and nobody has come and claimed that they gave this to me.
nice.
So that
Ooh,
is that. And now look how beautiful this is on the handle.
oh that's nice.
And then
Wow, that's really cool, man.
yeah, I have
Somebody was
no idea.
you and they didn't tell you who it was. That's a nice that is a nice audience member right there. That is really nice of them.
Yeah. And that was my thing. I was like, man, I wonder where they got this. There's no anything. There's no marking. This I'm 99% sure is handmade.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, and the sheath could be too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, and I've said this every time I pull this out. If you're watching, thank you.
that's really cool.
Yes, which I watched your Christmas unboxing as well, and sitting here watching all them stickers and everything that you got, and I'm sitting here getting jealous. Like, I want stickers.
Well, a lot of those were from Georgia Bushcraft. If you get a chance to go, man, that is such a fun event. Actually, for anybody, if you're not familiar with it, Georgia Bushcraft is the largest bushcraft gathering in the United States, and it's growing every year. It's so maybe I shouldn't tell people about it. It's getting really really big. But like I trained with Carly Fairchild from
Hmm.
seasons 3 and 5 of Alone while I was down there. Mark Merriweather, taken a couple foraging classes with him down there. Um, I mean, you can learn hand drill, fire making hand drill, foraging. Carly taught me how to make cordage in the wild. And there's vendors like all different knife vendors and Wazoo survival gear and PN Pacific Northwest bushcraft. They make like pouches and stuff like that.
Hmm.
It is a really good time, and the price, I mean, at some point it's probably going to go up, but I think it was like 125 for the weekend, and
Yeah.
you're talking with like some of the best experts in the country, maybe in the
Hmm.
world, on like bushcraft and survival skills. Like you're not going to find that deal anywhere else.
Nope. Nope. And that is, I that answers a ton of questions because one of the biggest ones that I get, which I kind of will segue into, I want to talk about networking. But they come to me and they go, okay, I'm doing the prepping and all this other stuff. You know, I get the same thing all the time. First rule about prepping is you don't tell anybody and all that. And then they come and ask me that right after that they say that, well, I can't find anybody to join my mag. And I'm going, well, first of all, they have to know that you're into prepping.
Right.
And the best way to do it is go to one of these festivals.
Yeah, for sure. And if you're thinking about like your neighbors and people who live nearby you, there's ways to start that conversation. Like we kind of know in our neighborhood who's prepared and who's probably not. By because I live in a hurricane alley prone area, and so when there's a hurricane, you just check in with your neighbors and you say, "How are you doing? Do you need batteries or anything?" If they say no, we're good. You guys need anything? They're probably at least they might not call themselves a prepper, but they probably have some prepper mindset. If
Mhm.
they say, "Well, what do you think I need?" that person might not be as prepared as you. So you just build relationships, start to trust people, and little by little, like we know in our neighborhood, we text people, be like, "Hey, there's a strange car parked in front of your house. Is that somebody you know?" Just kind of like who's got your back and who doesn't. But it starts with like conversations like that. Are you worried about the storm? That kind of stuff. So keep it kind of on the low end there, and then you just, as you get to know somebody, you can start to ask more questions like, are you worried about break-ins to your house? And if they've got trust with you, they'll be like, nope, we got that covered.
Mhm. Yep, yep. It's a way to lead into it. Which we got two questions. First one from Jim Richards. What does join your MAG mean? So MAG is a mutual assistance group that is basically kind of like a team that you would put together. You'd, and then this goes in mine, and I'll let you kind of give your definition.
Yeah, same
It's
thing.
not only just friends and family, but it once you get a couple of people, you want to start being kind of a little picky, so you cover areas. So
Mm.
if everybody is just gun and hunter enthusiast, who's going to grow the food, who's going to cook the food, who's going to repair things and things like that. So a mag helps each other. You're kind of like that chain thing, to where you're strong as your weakest link, and so you want to take all areas of survival and make sure that at least one, if not two people, are strong in that area.
Right. So if you've ever played the game with your friends of like, who would you want on your zombie apocalypse team? That's
Hmm.
basically mutual assistance group, right? And then why did you pick them? Well, this person was a paramedic. They've got some good first aid skills, or this person grows really good, is really good at growing a garden. So we know that they could probably help with the food supply and that kind of stuff.
And then I see Susan has a, what headlamp do you recommend? Um, I am a I used to be big into flashlight, but I'm going to show my age because I'm a huge Maglite fan. I still have one of those
Oh
really
yeah,
big ones that take like 5D batteries.
yeah.
I think two or three of my headlamps are Energizer, so it's probably not the best recommendation.
So that's for our when I'm camping, or if we have a blackout here, the Energizer is my first go-to. I do have other ones too, but that's usually what I'm using. Those Energizer headlamps that you can get at Walmart actually work really good. It's lasted me multiple years without any failures. The bulbs are still working and everything. And I think it's AAA, so like everybody's got AAA stacked. Um, and it's affordable. Going back to what you're saying, get use the gear that you can afford. It's affordable. But
Mhm.
my EDC flashlight is PowerTech, and it's got a clip on it that I could actually clip onto my
Mhm.
baseball cap, so you could use that as a
Yep,
head.
yep. And I've said this too on this. You don't have to spend a whole lot of money, and it actually works out for your favor. So instead of buying that $200 pen, go buy that $5 pen. If it works really well, then it's great, and then you can upgrade later. And you'd want to make sure that as your skill develops, your tool develops to fit your skill level.
Yeah.
And so if this still works and now you've elevated to here, put this off to the side.
Mhm.
It's not junk. It's obviously proven itself. You can barter with it. You can give it to a new person to get them started prepping. There's a lot of things you can do with that cheap $5 now that you're at the $20 level.
Hmm. Yeah, and Penteki says he's talking about the Maglite. It doubles as a baton. We have the same thing as you do. The D battery one, the old school
Hmm.
1980s one, and it's by the front door, and we call it the attitude adjuster.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Those things, I think if you drop them on concrete, they actually bust concrete.
Probably.
Yes. And then I saw, and I don't know if he is still in here, but I'm sure he will pop up when I say. So, another thing that kind of always gets me over to watching your videos is you're a precious metals guy.
Hmm.
So, tell me, what is your opinion on having some sort of precious metals for an SHTF situation?
Yeah, so we definitely talk a lot about financial preparedness on my channel. It's my personal opinion. Everybody's gonna give different thoughts on this. I don't think people should go 100% into precious metals. I'm definitely not going to. 5 to 10% is a good amount. So what do I mean by 5 to 10%? So you can look at that as like five to 10% of your income, or if money's really tight, then maybe it's 5 to 10% of your discretionary money after all your bills are paid. Everybody's situation's a little bit different. Uh, but I also like dividend producing stocks because it creates like mailbox money. Basically, you invest in a company like, say, Coca-Cola. It gives you a dividend for investing in them. So your share, the money you've got in the share, it's going to go up and down based on the price of the share. I don't really look at that every day. I look at it once in a while. But then just because I'm a shareholder, they send you some profits back. You
Mhm.
can either reinvest that, or you can take it as extra money, or you can start putting that towards your emergency savings. And there's tons of companies that do this. You just search for uh, dividend stocks. And I like to look for ones that have been around for a long time, like Coca-Cola, that have weathered through multiple recessions. Companies not going anywhere. If they have bad year, if they have 3 bad years in a row, they're still not going anywhere. There's
Right.
Coca-Cola is still going to be here. But precious metals, I've leaned heavy into silver since 2009. If I could go back and do it differently, I think I would have gotten some more gold. Um, Silver, as much as I believe in it, and I will continue to buy silver, gold just seems to perform better, and silver just lags. It's like gold will jump a couple hundred points, a couple $100 in value per ounce fairly quickly, and then
Mhm.
it takes silver a long time just to jump $2, and then
Yep.
sometimes something happens and it knocks it right back down. There's a lot of theories about how it's manipulated and that kind of stuff, and probably is my guess. um, but I do both, but I lean more into gold a little bit more going forward, and if I could go back in time, that's probably what I would have done.
Right. Right. And I fully get it. And really, as long as it is a precious metal, and it's you're not going overboard with it. If you're doing that 5 to 10% what you can afford, then as long as it's a precious metal, it should retain some sort of value.
And it's
And
physical, it's in your hand,
yep.
which is different than the stocks that I was talking about, right? Stocks are like, it's a number on a computer somewhere. I own it, but is it in my hand, right? Like,
Right.
uh, when the first time you buy a silver dollar or an ounce of gold, if you can afford that or whatever, and you hold it in your hand, like you really have this feeling like that's what real money feels like,
Yep.
you know?
Yep. And for all the people that go in there and they look at gold, because gold's valuable, and they go, okay, I'm going to go buy one little tiny ounce of gold, and then they see it's like what, 20 grand right now,
For an
or
ounce,
2,000.
2000, yeah, for an ounce.
Sorry, I got my decimal over there. So they're like, well, wait a sec, I can't afford 2,000,
Yeah,
and then they start trying to figure things out, and then all of a sudden, I get the people that they're like, well, I only have like $5 extra at the end of the month, and I go, yes, but you can still buy 1 gram of silver, and this is like spot values, what, 80 cents right now
Spot on silver is, I think I looked at it earlier today. I think it was around 23.50 or so per ounce.
per ounce? Yeah. And so I think a gram right now is like 77 cents.
Yep,
If you cannot afford 77 cents in a month's time,
yep.
then you may want to get your finances figured out before you really jump into some other things. You're probably in a personal SHTF situation.
Yeah. Or those are a good choice. Also, the dimes, pre 65
Mhm.
dimes, right? So if you've got a local coin shop around you, you can go in there and just say, I'm looking for pre 65 dimes. They're going to ask you, well, how many do you want, or how much do you want to spend, or whatever. Um, you can decide, like, you can get the ones that are in pristine condition, but if you're just looking for it to like gain some weight in silver, ask them for the culls, which means like they've been beat up pretty bad. There's silver content in there. So if you buy like a cull silver dime, it's probably around, I don't know, maybe $3 right now or something like that. So you could go buy a couple of those a month, or however, whatever your budget allows. But it's got to be pre 65 dimes,
Yep.
because after 1965, it wasn't made with silver anymore.
Well, and Southern Tier brings up a good one. So, what will happen to the markets if there's a long-term grid down event?
It won't be
And
good.
for me, if you have this in your hand.
Right.
People know what silver is. They may not understand the value depending on who you're going with, but you have something of value in your hand. If the market goes and you have $500,000 in the market, do you have anything?
Yeah, and it's not, and when it can, if and when that market ever comes back online in a situation like that, it's not going to be worth 500,000 now. It's going to be
Mhm.
much less.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
The
So
the other thing that, since we're talking about it, is sometimes, you see in the prepper community people say, well, it really doesn't have any value, you can't eat gold and silver in the apocalypse. Well, that's true, right? Like if there's a big nuclear event, if there's zombies, if a comet hits the planet, my gold and silver is not going to help me. I 100% agree with you. At that point, I would want to have shelter and a food and that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of events that happen every day where gold and silver does help you. And for over 2,000 years, it's helped people escape war zones. It's helped countries that have collapsed, people who were smart enough to put some money back into silver and gold didn't have to completely start over. So, it was used during the Civil War to bribe people so that blockades could be run. It's being used right now to escape war zones around the country. It's being used around the world. I'm sorry, around the world, to buy fake papers so that you
mhm,
can get out of your war zone country. You could take, if you had 5 ounces of gold. Now, granted, that's, you're talking like over $10,000. But let's say that you did. Let's say you had 5 ounces of gold. You could hop on a plane with those 5 ounces of gold. You're not really going to drive. They might see it when you go through TSA, but 5 ounces of gold isn't really that big of a deal. You can go to another country, go to a coin shop, change that to the local currency, and you can disappear.
mhm,
Start your life over, basically.
mhm.
So, in a zombie apocalypse, yeah, I'd rather have food.
Right.
In a nuclear war, I'd rather have a bunker. But there's a lot of other events where silver and gold does help.
Or if there's, I forget which one it is, vampires or werewolves or whatever, I do have my silver bullet. So,
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
oh, I saw another one. JS Genesis. So, food, ammo, alcohol will be barter items. And I tell you what, I don't know what it is, but when you say barter,
Mhm.
that is so controversial.
It becomes a hot topic. Yeah. There's no doubt food, ammo, and alcohol would be sought after, and
Mhm,
bandages and medicines. Medicines would be huge, right? Like if somebody had, so I have asthma, right? So this is a life saving medication for me. Imagine if and I've stockpiled quite a bit of these. Imagine if I couldn't get this anymore. What would I be willing to get
mhm,
one of these? What would I be willing to give, right? If I'm in the middle of an asthma attack and I feel like I'm going to die, I'd probably give up my rifle to get this.
yep.
So medicines is huge.
Well, and that brings up the thing because I get it all the time. What should I be stockpiling to barter? And I go a little bit of everything because, like what you said, if food, ammo, alcohol, those are great bartering items. But if you have food, ammo, alcohol, all that stuff, and you're having an asthma attack, he has nothing for you that you want, and so all of his stuff becomes useless
Yeah.
because you don't have it. It's why if you have a little bit of everything, you have a better chance of being able to barter.
Yeah. That person who's having a diabetic issue, if you've got insulin, that's worth more than anything in the world to them at that moment in time.
Hmm. Yeah, and something is only as valuable as somebody that's willing to do it. If you've got ice water in the desert, you're
Mhm.
probably rich. If you've
Yeah,
got ice in the Arctic, nobody cares about you.
right.
Yes.
Right.
See if there's any other ones. I thought I saw some. Man, these things go quick on here. Cases of vodka, cheap whiskey. See,
And
that's
since
either a prepping one or somebody's having a party during the zombie apocalypse.
it sounds like it's going to be the place to be. uh, and by the way, for since we were talking about life-saving medications and stuff like that, if you're in that boat, I do strongly encourage you to also not just like get a handle on those medications as best you can in advance, but also learn like what are your plant alternatives and stuff like that. So I can make some asthma medicine based on stuff that I grow here on the farm. You can do it with garlic and rosemary, Maline. I never know how to pronounce that one. Um, but none of that is going to be as good as the inhaler. It's. I believe in natural medicines, but I also believe in modern medicines as well. So you should, if you're in a boat like me where you have to have some type of medicine, definitely learn your plant alternatives too.
Hmm. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's one of those ones. The probably another one of the prepping mottos. Two is one and one is none. So if you are asthmatic and you need an inhaler, you have to have a backup to that inhaler. Now, if that's a second, a third inhaler, that's great. But eventually, if we're talking 20 years before civilization comes back, inhalers I don't think will last, even if you go find a warehouse.
Yeah. Well, if there is a warehouse full of those, somebody's already claimed it. I promise
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Right there, Susan, with the learn the alternatives before you need it.
You got.
Amen. Very much. There we go. In which I thought I saw, didn't hit the button on the way out. Yes, Amy, I hope you feel better. I know that you was a little under the weather, and this seems to be going around. I don't know if you've seen it, but it seems like right around Christmas time up to now, either somebody's had a death in the family, somebody's in the hospital, or somebody's like really sick.
Yeah, there's all kinds of bugs going around right now. It's pretty much everybody I know is sick. I don't know how I've avoided it so far. I
Yeah,
probably just
same here.
cursed myself.
What do we got with Sassy? Planning to start a medical garden this year. Well, there's a good New Year's resolution.
Yep. Sassy Gal
Yep.
does some of that stuff with essential oils too, which people should not sleep on those. Essential oils are, basically it's made from plants, and all modern pharmaceutical medications are also made from plants, right? There's a reason why, like, we talk about this stuff. It's just concentrated and purified, and you can do some of that stuff with essential oils and
Mhm.
tinctures, and things like that too.
Yes, and which we'll go back because I think we kind of skipped over networking. Um, if you guys don't know who Sassy Gal is, she does have a YouTube. I do pop over there and watch some of her stuff. I definitely was really active in her Christmas giveaway. She had a really fun little game and all that. But she's got another one, Southern Tears, another one that she's getting her YouTube up and going. And I love to network with everybody, and that's why I like to do these interviews to bring everybody together. Because it seems like I saw for you popped right in the chat, and everybody's just talking and having a great time before like 10 minutes before we got on here.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, honestly, you going back to what you were saying before about don't tell anyone what you got. Well, obviously, when you create a channel, you're sacrificing quite a bit of anonymity, but at the benefit of, like, I enjoy helping people and I enjoy networking. Like this, I don't know that I would still do this if not for the friendships that I've made through the channel.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I've made some really interesting friends. Going to some of the events, but just starting the channel of being able to talk to so many different people and talking to people that's in prepping to people that do the farm life and uh, you know just to see people all over the country and see the different walks of life and how I'm not really a prepper but I'm a homesteader.
Hmm.
Well, it kind of ties in. Well, I'm not really that. I'm actually a survivalist or I'm a bushcrafter, and I'm like, but we all tie in together. We're all, you can have that label,
Right.
but at the end of the day, we're all in the same room.
Yeah, it's all about independence and survival and self sufficiency. I think that's the common thread.
Yes, yes. And I think I came across you, and I don't remember if it was you or if it was Pennsylvania, but one of you guys posted, and he was like, "Hey, join us. We're going to have." It was you guys and the Orlando Prepper,
Yeah.
and you guys did your 3-person one, and I was sitting there like glued to it watching you guys,
Yeah.
and I was like, man, I really got to get back into this because I get more out of that than most of the videos that I watch on things.
Yeah.
Like
I
the
like
really
the
good choreographed flashing this, and oh, check out my knife. I'm like, those are cool, and
yeah.
they're eye popping, but that sit back and just off the top of your head with no script, I learn a ton.
Yeah. I really enjoy collaborating like this too, doing panels and stuff like that. It's really fun. I
Oh
agree.
yeah. Oh yes. Absolutely agree. Who else do we have down here? Everybody seems to be going strong in the chat.
That and see, that's fun too when you're doing. I've had streams where like I'm talking about a topic, and the way I do it is I kind of do the back and forth. I'll talk for a little bit, and then I'll check the chat, talk for a little bit, and like I check back on the chat, and there's like five different conversations going, and I love it. I think it's
Mhm.
great that people are like networking and supporting each other and asking questions of each other. That's to me those some of those are my favorite streams. If you don't listen to me, that's okay. You're still you're getting something out of this. You're meeting friends. The that's like to me that's what it's all about when we do these YouTube channels.
Oh yeah, yeah. And it's just amazing on how well you can go into things. Of certain interviews that I've done, and I was actually just really fortunate with my very first interview I got to do with pinball,
I saw that, yeah.
and it was really fun. And we still somewhat communicate. I haven't emailed him in a while, actually. Now that I think about that, uh, but you're starting out, and so you're like this, and you're just kind of going up the hill of the YouTube thing, and all of a sudden I did the thing with pinball, and I went, I was like, oops.
Yeah. 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 My first collaboration was with Morgan from Rogue Preparedness.
Oh
And I
yes.
I'd been a fan of her channel for a long time. And so I was at this point, I think I only had like 400 subscribers or something like that. Was just really just kind of messing around with it, not even sure if I was going to stick with it. And so I reached out to her, and I think she knew me from comments and stuff. And I said, "Hey, would you be willing to do this?" And at that point, I think she had like 16,000 subscribers. She was like,
Mhm.
"Yeah, sure." I was like, "What? Really?"
Yep.
So I love that when the big channels give back to the little channels too. That's really great.
Right. And that's why I like too. I can't think of, and I just went completely blank. There's one of the people. They'll come to me in a second. They're a big channel. They got 200,000 or whatever. Um, but they like to go in and just share somebody's video. Like they may not come in and do an interview with you, but they'll share your video, or they'll leak a comment or whatever that really pops you up. And I emailed them because I was like, I see you doing this, and theirs was, it's you don't want to go in because it overshadows. And they said they actually appreciate the smaller people because when you're so big, you can't talk to 200,000 people.
Right.
But when you have 1,500, 2,000 subscribers, you can interact. You're more intimate. They can come to you with a question. Usually, I don't know about you. I think on you, I've seen it, but I think within hours, I get back to somebody.
Mhm. Yeah, I try to answer all questions within 3 days at the most. It does get harder. The more subscribers you get, the harder that gets to be. But so far, I've been able to stay on top of that. I've got a system where I'm going in, but at some point, if you want, because this is how it works. Is some point you might go from 2,000 subscribers, you wake up and you have 18,000 subscribers, and you've got hundreds of comments that are unanswered. Like then it becomes really unwieldy.
Oh yeah, yes. And look at that. We actually got a little super sticker.
They're
That is
sassy.
awesome. That is awesome. I tell you what, and for all the people that don't have a YouTube channel, that feeling when you're sitting here like this and you're talking live and you're doing your thing, all of a sudden that little super sticker comes up and you're like, "Yay!"
Yep, absolutely. Uh,
Yes. So,
Well, if any, I guess since you hit on that, let's talk about that. So, if anybody's watching this in chat and you don't have a channel and you're thinking about it, if you have questions, go ahead and throw them out there. I had tons when I started and didn't really even know who to ask them from. I asked some from Morgan because she was really nice to me, and then later on, I became friends with Cliff, the urban prepper, who's got a
mhm.
really big channel, and he helped me out a little bit too, but most of it's been like from similar sized channels, just like talking to each other offline, like, hey, how's this working for you? Sometimes it's even like, have you ever dealt with this company before? Are they good to deal with or not? um, Titan Preparedness and I have done that a couple times, like, hey, I got an email from this company, what do you think, that kind of
Yep.
thing. Um, so if you have questions, go ahead and throw them out there. I'll say the biggest thing, if you want to grow, for me, has been doing networking like what we're doing here, just
Mhm.
talking to other channels and not trying to be that lone wolf. I never once saw this as a competition. I'm not out to beat anybody else's channel or have more subscribers. That's not wouldn't be fun for me. This is not, this is about giving back, networking, and if I make a little bit of money in the process of that, I'm happy for that. um, but the money's not good enough to say like, oh, I'm in it for the money, you know.
No.
Can you make money at it? Because I know
Yeah.
people probably wondering that. Yeah, you can
Mhm.
make some money. I've had some really good months. I've had months where my paycheck from doing this was better than the paycheck from my primary job. That doesn't happen all the time.
Right.
But it had happened a couple times, and I was like, oh man, maybe I could do this full time. And then the next month comes, I'm like, yeah, no, I
Yep.
can't do
Yep.
this.
Yep. Which for me, I'm like 100 hours away from becoming fully monetized.
Cool.
So I think the last time I checked, I'm at like $2.68 for the month on YouTube. But doing merchandise,
Yeah.
yeah, this now granted, this isn't even going to pay like my, I don't know, this isn't going to put gas in my car, like fill my tank, the money I make off that,
Right.
because I am not like Pepsi or Coke where I'm a huge brand name.
Right.
So I try and make everything cheap. And so I think on just about every item that I have and all the stuff, I make $1. You
Yeah.
know, I want people to take the stuff and put it out there so they come to the channel, they can learn something, then they can hook up and see that I'm doing an interview with you. They can like you, move on. You can do an interview, then they move over to somebody else.
Yep.
Oh, and
Yep.
I see right there, Mrs. Rural is cooking for fun, and Little Rural says, "Hi, Dad." So, hi, buddy.
Oh, that's great. What are they making? That's what I want to know.
With him, who knows anymore? He did get a grill for Christmas. He's 4 years old, and we discovered that you can buy toy bacon. So he cooked daddy bacon. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Yes. Let's see.
Tip of the
Yes,
day.
everybody see he did a little guest spot for me, so people know what he looks like. He is a cutie for sure.
That's awesome. Uh,
Yes.
Tip of the Southern Tier Prepper. I love that. The tip of the day. That's a great thing to do. Yeah.
I have no idea how she does it.
Yeah. And if you're, are you on Instagram, Southern Tier Prepper? Because that kind of content does really well on Instagram.
Yes, it does. In which I get to what do you want to call it? Um I guess harp on myself just for a tiny second. I'm one of the few people in the world that knows what Southern Tier looks like.
Okay. So
Which we did
have you watched the Digital Prepper?
no.
Digital Prepper and I have collaborated for, I don't know, probably about 5 videos. He does great content, but it's all about like cybersecurity and maintaining your privacy online and that kind of stuff. So he and I we talk offline through DMs and whatnot, and I have no idea what he looks like.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's a few that do that. I think Lucky Dane Preparedness is another one. There's quite a few that they have that calling to want to come out and help, but they don't want to be the face of it, and it's understandable.
Understandable.
There's a lot of weird, creepy people out there.
Yeah, yeah. Have you encountered that yet?
I have encountered one person in public, and it was actually funny because I was in Rural King,
Okay.
and they were down at the other end of the aisle, and they shouted "Rural," and I was just like, "Wow, they're really excited to be here." Wait, that's me.
Have you had like somebody be weird though, or anything like that?
No, I haven't had any trolls on YouTube. I've had two or three on Facebook,
Mhm,
and only one of them was quote unquote bad that I actually was lucky enough to catch right when they posted.
mhm.
So, but I'm lucky, I suppose. I know it's coming.
Yeah, it's unavoidable. I guess if anybody's thinking about starting a channel, that's something to know too. Is that unfortunately it is you're going to deal with some difficult people too, and you have to be okay with that. Um, I've had to delete some racist comments and things like that.
Hmm.
The I had one person send me a death threat. Um, Trying to think what else. I had one person tell me that, and I mean most of the time I just block people, but kind of depends what the problem is. I had one person tell me because I was showing a coin and I said something like it was the Queen or something. No, I don't even remember. It might have been Liberty. It might have been Lady Liberty. And I said, "Isn't she beautiful?" And like they went off on me like that I was worshiping a false god and like really off the wall stuff. And like I didn't even respond to that, but my audience handled it and they were like, that's
Mhm,
a really weird comment.
mhm. Well, and two things. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
One, that's how you know you have an amazing community
Yeah.
because sometimes in my lives I get on a topic and I want to stay there because I squirrel a lot. So I have to do this to kind of keep on topic. But I'll
Right.
see the chat going and it goes, all right, what's going on? Somebody got in there and said something
Mm.
and they're taking care of it for me.
Yeah.
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 And then the other one, I suppose, is not, I guess, a troll, but I had a really interesting question, and it was from a young lady who told me that her survival plan was to do her best, but she was going to use herself to get through. And
Mm.
then asked if she could join my mag, and I was like, "Well, no, you can't." And she was like, "Are you sure? I can send pictures." And I was like, "Block." Mrs. Rural's not going to like that.
No, there's a lot of that nonsense on Twitter.
Mhm.
I mean, I get dozens a day on Twitter, and I honestly I don't even open them anymore. Once in a while, like for fun, I'll open one and I'll respond back. Like I got one today that said, "Wow, you're so handsome," which like, so I responded back and I said, "Okay, I'm fat, I'm bald, and I'm old, and I'm happily married." So, like, I don't know
Yeah.
what you're after, but I don't have it for you, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and that's where I want to reply to him. Like, if you're after my money, I made $2.68 last month. So
Yeah.
yes. So we're at our hour. So I'll give it another few minutes. If anybody has any last minute questions for me or for Sarge, go ahead and drop them into the comment sections now before we sign off. Before I forget though, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you and all your fun stuff? Because I know you're getting ready to do a giveaway and all that. So go ahead and do all your plugs.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, so we're approaching 5,000 subscribers on YouTube. I am doing a giveaway. I put up the rules for the giveaway today, earlier today. So if you go over there, it's going to be my most recent video, and literally the thumbnail says 5,000 subscriber giveaway. So you can go check that out. The So I'm on here. It's Prepping with Sarge is the channel. You should, if you search it, it will come right up. I'm on Instagram, and it's on Instagram because they have to do the weird things. It's prepping underscore with underscore Sarge. I post there just about every day, but it's much smaller content. It's quick. It's like, a picture or a tip or whatever. It's like really in YouTube, we can get into stuff much more. I'm also on Facebook, but it's pretty small community there. I'm still kind of building up, so it's Prepping with Sarge YouTube channel or the official Prepping with Sarge YouTube channel. You should be able to find it that way. And if you like to talk politics, I'm on Twitter, and that's where I do a little bit more of my political stuff. Twitter, I find is, and if you don't like politics, that's fine. I keep that stuff out of my other three areas, because I know not everybody wants that. But on Twitter, I find is one of the platforms since Elon bought it where you can have a tolerable discussion. There's definitely trolls. There's definitely arguments and people being stupid and that kind of stuff. But some of the things that you can talk about on Twitter, if you try to talk about them on YouTube, you're going to get shadow banned or suppressed or whatever, and that just doesn't happen there. So talking about like Second Amendment stuff and things like that, where YouTube's just not supportive of that, unfortunately, and Instagram, unfortunately, has become really unsupportive of the knife community recently. So I'm even like having to question, like, can I even talk about my knives and throw pictures up of my knives on Instagram? So Twitter will be, for now, unless something happens, will be the safe haven for a lot of that stuff. So if you like that, check me out on Twitter too.
Yep, yep. Which I've learned. I was talking with John from over at SOE, and we were talking about how to grow the channel and everything, and the different platforms you have to use. You literally, with the carpal tunnel and everything that's showing up in people and all that, you literally have 5 to 15 seconds to gain your subscriber. Once you get them through a picture or a short, then they'll come watch this in the long form and things like that, and then you can see if they stick around.
Sure.
And have you noticed, because you've been around a lot longer than I have you noticed yourself get shadow banned when you check your metrics?
So I've definitely questioned it a few times. I think I've been pretty lucky on YouTube so far. A couple weird things happened. I did a video about See, I have to be. You start learning that there's certain words YouTube hates,
Yes.
and if, and a good channel, if people are curious about this, is Andrew Platt. YouTube Analyzed. He actually does tests on words to see if YouTube will not like them or not, and he shows you how he does that. So I picked up some stuff from there. So I did a video about a certain horrible day in the United States where we had things fly into things, if you get my meaning, and it got demonetized, and my views were really really low. Um, and then I went and I'm like, what the heck's the problem? Apparently, YouTube doesn't like us talking about that at all.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
don't know. And it wasn't my video, by the way, wasn't conspiracy theory. It was just where were you when this happened? It was kind of one of those deals. So that happened on Instagram. Everybody in the knife community has noticed like something weird's going on. A lot of people have gotten messages that says we're no longer showing your content to new people,
Hmm.
and the only thing we all have in common is that people are showing knife pictures.
Yep.
So I did feel like something wonky was going on with my Instagram. Like I'd gained 10 subscribers, and then the next day I'd be down 12.
Hmm.
Like somebody was messing with it. Uh, it seems like it's stopped. Twitter, I've never had that problem. Again, that's why I think for a lot of topics, Twitter, if you want to get into stuff that other platforms don't like, Twitter or some people like Rumble. People have asked me, will you get on Rumble? I just can't get onto another platform. I'm doing four.
Hmm.
And it's like taking up way too much of my time right now. So I cannot squeeze in a fifth. But maybe you like Rumble instead. But there's a couple platforms out there that do respect free speech more than these ones, and so yeah, I felt it for sure. I got kicked off of not kicked off. I got suspended on Facebook for 10 days because, and this was really funny. Um, it was us talking. It was a group talking about blackouts and power outages,
Hmm.
and somebody was talking about candles, and I said, "Yep, good idea. Just be careful. Don't leave it unattended because you can burn your house down." Um, the algorithm took that as a threat,
Yep.
and I got suspended for 10 days from Facebook for that one. And when I went to appeal it, like you have to upload your license and all this other
Hmm.
stuff, and I'm like, screw that. I'll take
Nope.
the 10-day death jail sentence, whatever,
Yeah. I went to check on mine the other day. Somebody asked me how close I was to getting monetized on Facebook. And I was like, all right, click, click, click. And it has the 3 or 4 little things that, you got to check off. And the
Yeah.
first one, it says meet our standards. And it's got a big X in it. And I'm like, what did I do? I'm not even.
See, I haven't looked at it, so I'm probably on there too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I doubt I will ever be monetized over at Facebook, which is completely fine. Uh,
Yeah.
the fun thing about being on Facebook is I really like being over there and supporting a lot of the homesteaders and small businesses.
Yeah.
I stumbled upon, you can see that B America Candle Company, where
Cool.
I got their really cute Lucky Pig 100% beeswax candle.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yes, I like to do that. And so, actually, one of my New Year's resolutions was to find at least 1 or 2 small businesses and support them. So, if anybody's on here that has a small business, go over to Facebook, find my stuff, post it out there. I love to share it. I will randomly pick 1 or 2, buy an item or two, and support you guys. So,
That's really
yeah.
cool.
All right. Let's see. Look at that. There's one that says message held for review. I think we said something bad.
Oh. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh well. It happens.
Yeah.
All
Yes,
right.
that's Sassy. What that Sassy's got it right. They're also on Instagram. They're going after people who do the natural remedies.
Mhm.
They're giving them a really hard time. Instagram has become really unfriendly to preppers and homesteaders, and which
Mhm.
is a shame because I really enjoy that platform and
Mhm.
like how easy it is to find what you're looking for. And it's very visual, more so than on any of the other platforms. Instagram is very, very visual. It's a shame that it's becoming an unsafe place.
Yeah. It is. It is absolutely. And somebody will get it. Rumble tried its best to come over and take over, YouTube, but you got to go with your audience is, and I have a Rumble channel, and I think I've got 3 subscribers and like 10 watches on my video. I come over to here and upload a 45 seconds short, and I've got 6,000 views in 5 days. So you got to go where the people's going to watch you, or you can't get the message out.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah.
And if you want to stay, you gotta play by the rules as best you can.
Yeah. Until one of us talks to somebody really, really rich and goes through and buys us a prepping.org free setting / something place that we can all just hang out and have fun with no rules.
Yeah.
So.
People were begging Elon to buy YouTube, but he's got his hands full right now with X.
Well, hey now, that was on my 2024 predictions, is that he might buy either Facebook or TikTok. So
it would be fun to see. It would be actually if I don't use TikTok, if he bought TikTok, I would strongly consider it.
Yeah.
I would.
Yeah. And that's what somebody said, is they go, well, he would probably buy TikTok over top of Facebook. And I go, yeah, but if him and I don't want to say the other guy's name, if they do that Rumble match like they were talking about, maybe that's what they're putting on the line.
That'd be great. I love it.
Excellent. All right, we went way over our hour-long thing, so I had a ton of fun. I enjoyed it, and I'm sure that we can probably come up with something else to come back together.
Absolutely, yeah. Let's do this again. I had a great time. Thank you so much for having me on.
No, I appreciate it, and I am working on one. If you have seen it in the video, I'm trying to get a 4 or 5 panel, just get a bunch of people together, do a live stream, and just go to town.
The panels are a lot of fun. It's especially if you can get the flow going and everybody's helping to answer and support each other. Those are like the one we did a couple weeks ago, like you talked about for New Year's. That was a blast.
Yeah, I watched that one too. I love the panels. I hardly ever miss panels. I go back and rewatch them, and those, I am completely thankful that people finally started doing the panel stuff. So look at all that. Thanks, guys. All the good stuff. Have a great weekend. Good live. Thank you guys so much for stopping in and hanging out with us. We
Thank
will
you, Seth.
definitely work something out. We got a bunch more interviews coming up, because I am talking to Pennsylvania Preparedness on Sunday. So
Good guy.
yeah. So all right, you got anything else to say before we end it?
No, thank you very much to everybody in the chat. I enjoyed watching all the chat and great questions. And yeah, you're gonna have fun with Pennsylvania too. He's a great guy.
Yeah. So everybody, when you jump off here, go subscribe over there and say hello to Sarge. Tell him you saw him here, and give him every bit of your love.
And don't forget,
all right, guys. We'll talk to you guys later.